Hello and welcome everyone to another DevRev live stream. Today we have the pleasure of having Prabhat join us today. Prabhat, how are you today?
Hi, Ahmad. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've got a pretty fun topic today. Obviously, we've been talking a little bit about many aspects of agentic and large language models, and then it got into AirSync and several topics around context engineering as well, and then most recently about MCP. I think we wanted to take a little bit of a detour and talk about something that we got some emails from customers, and it was surprising to us uh, that it was not more obvious how single sign-on works and how to take advantage of single sign-on in the context of how users log into our product and more specifically log into specific dev workspaces. So we figured it'd be a good time to talk about that and maybe bring up some content that we've produced in the past in the form of blog posts and whatnot. And who better to speak with on this topic than Prabhat? So Prabhat, where do you want to get it started?
Sure. I guess, Ahmad, you can see my screen. Can you?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's
we're
start.
gonna we're gonna pop it up when you're ready.
Ready. Yeah, I think we are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start with this blog. I wrote this October 2024 last year. So this basically explains not just the what we are using, but also the thought process behind it, why we picked certain things. So this covers uh, to a broader level, how we have built our identity platform. But in this particular episode, since we are only focusing on single sign-on aspects, so I'll just jump into it. Uh, so let me use this diagram to explain how we have designed our north-south authentication flow. Yeah, I think this will give you an high-level overview. So you can see DevRev, we have a set of microservices, and then uh, we use a single identity provider which is trusted by all of our applications. So we have multiple applications. So we have web application for direct DevRev customers who can log in via app.devrev.ai, and we have a support portal for our customers to raise tickets against their corresponding org. And then we have a mobile app, then we have a desktop app and a CLI. So there are multiple apps, and the all our functionality exposed via APIs, so anyone can build their own clients too. So one design decision we made from day one in terms of authentication, we are not going to support username password based authentication. And maybe before we get there, let's be clear on some terminology, because this also could add some confusion. So these are
Mhm.
related terms, but they are a little different, like authentication, federation, and single sign-on. So authentication is about identifying who you are or validate who you are claimed to be. So you would use, like, still the most common way is username and password. And then we have OTP over email, OTP over SMS, FIDO devices or passkey, which is built on top of FIDO 2.0. And there are multiple factors based on like who you are, what you have, and what you know. So based on those factors, there are multiple authentication factors. It will tell us or tell the system who you are. So that's authentication. So then what's federation? So federation is about passing these authentication assertions. I'll limit this discussion for authentication. Passing
Mhm.
set of authentication assertions from one place to another place, mostly between two trust domains. For example, you can log into Slack using Google, right? So when you click on login with Google on Slack, you will be redirected to Google. So you authenticate to Google with your Google credentials. Then
Yeah.
Google will create some assertion and pass it back to Slack. So that's the federation use case, right? So basically, the Slack will accept that because it trusts Google. So that particular assertion is signed by Google, and then Slack knows how to verify that. That's a federation flow. So Google is a different trust domain, Slack is a different trust domain. And to do that in a standard way, so there are multiple standards. OpenID Connect, SAML are the two most prominent standards for that. And like SAML has been there since 2005, and even though it was dead in multiple blocks few times, it's not going to die. So it'll be there for like some more years. And OpenID Connect started in 2014, and any new app which is going to support federation standards is built on top of OpenID Connect. So no new apps will add SAML support. Most of they are built on top of OpenID Connect for different reasons. We can discuss that too.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two prominent stands. That's the federation part, right? So we know authentication, we know federation. Then what's single sign-on? So single sign-on is an experience that users will get mostly in terms of federation flows. Say like you log into Google and you will be automatically logged into all the other connected service providers or applications that trust Google for login, right? So you only log in once, you will be seamlessly log in whenever you come back to that particular application. That's the user's experience. That's a single sign-on. Most of the time, like the whoever authenticates or whoever takes care of your identity is called the identity provider. So in our previous example, Google is the identity provider, right? So most of the time, like Google, then Auth0, Okta, so those are the prominent, Azure AD, those are the prominent identity providers. The way they facilitate single sign-on is in terms of web single sign-on. Whenever you want to authenticate an app, you get redirected to identity provider's domain, and then they will create a session for you, which is managed by cookies under that particular domain. So that's how they manage. They share the sessions between multiple apps, and that's how they facilitate single sign-on. So those are the three terminology. So now when we come back to the DevRev context, so we are using Auth0 as our identity provider. So whenever you want to log in to a DevRev app, irrespective of your org, so we do support multi-tenancy, we do support multiple orgs. Irrespective of your org, whenever you click on login, you will be redirected to Auth0. Then Auth0 will authenticate you in multiple ways. So one way is you can use your social identity provider authenticate. So by default, we do support Google and LinkedIn. Or else you can use email OTP. Or else you can connect your org's own enterprise IDP, right? So now even you use social identity provider or enterprise IDP, still both are federation flows. Like if you pick Google, then we'll federate to Google. If you use LinkedIn, we'll federate the user to LinkedIn. But if you are configured your enterprise IDP against your org, then we'll federate your IDP over the protocol they support. So we talked about two protocols to support federation flows: OpenID Connect and SAML. So whenever DevRev connects to Auth0, it will always use OpenID Connect. But Auth0 can connect to any like OpenID Connect or SAML federation flows your IDP support. So we have integrated with multiple IDPs: Auth0, Okta, Azure, and there are several other IDPs, even some custom built IDPs we have integrated. We could do that because we build these integration flows, federation flows based on the standards. So we can integrate with any IDP who would support these federation standards. So that's the like high level overview of how the federation works. And yeah, Ahmed, do you have any questions or anything before we move forward?
Yeah, I think the differentiation between the federation and single sign-on, I mean, what you're really saying is federation is about creating linkages. So it's about having a provider that is offering the ability to actually have their authenticated persona be used to get to a different authenticated provider's experience. Meaning to say that you're saying, like, if you're using DevRev, so put it another way, if you're using DevRev and you log in using, let's say sign in with Google or sign in with Apple, let's just say, if you were to use something like that, sign in with Google, you're still authenticating with Okta.
That's right.
That's right. But what is it that you're using the Google credentials for? Google is basically just a identity provider there, which is let's just say a social identity provider, which is then being used, and those credentials are being used but authenticated by Auth0 in this particular case.
That's right. Yeah. So there can be little confusion when we use Google, because I'll show you it in demo too. Because
Okay,
it comes to Auth0, then Auth0 will federate to Google, right? So now,
that's right.
like if you like some people use Google's workspace to manage their email and their user identities too, right? For example, even at DevRev, right? So at DevRev, we use Google Workspace, and we have set up Okta as the IDP of the Google Workspace for DevRev employees, right?
Hmm.
So now what happens is I can show it. Like, so if you go to DevRev app, right? So now I click on login here, right? So now when I click on Google, right? So this takes me to Google itself. So now I am on Google domain. See, accounts.google.com.
Yeah.
Now, these are my Google logged in identities. So now here, either I can use login with Gmail, right? That's an option. Or else I can let's say I can log in with my DevRev email. So now what happens is when I click on DevRev email, so this is one federation flow, right? So DevRev app. So if you look at this diagram, sorry, if you look at this diagram, so this DevRev app redirected user Auth0, Auth0 redirected to Google, right? So now we are
Yeah.
on Google, right? So if I click on DevRev here, Google will federate me to Okta, because we have set up Google as Okta as our trusted IDP of the Google Workspace. That's an organization setup. DevRev doesn't need to worry about. I mean, DevRev app doesn't worry about it, right? So when I click on
That's
this one, you can see Google will federate me to Okta. It actually went
yeah.
through and came back because I already logged into. I already had credentials. I mean, I already had a
Yeah.
session with Okta, right?
I mean, I think that's a good example of, let's just say, 2 degrees of federation,
That's
right?
right. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what you're effectively saying is that Auth0, has sort of federation, and that's hence why you're going to Google, and then
Yeah.
Google has federated with Okta, and so Okta then is where your sort of identity is really being managed, and then as an identity provider, it's allowing you to log into Google, for example.
That's right. Yes. Right. So that's a good example too. Like, I mean, that's the flexibility. So we call this identity bridge pattern, right?
Yeah.
So Auth0 is acting as identity bridge, so it can federate users to any other IDPs, and that IDP itself can act as an identity bridge too. In the previous
Yeah.
example, we saw Auth0 is acting as a bridge, and also Google is acting as a bridge too, right?
Yeah.
So this has the benefits too. So this actually has some history. Like in 2014, when I was part of my previous company WSO2, so we built the industry's very first IND bridge, which supports complex transformations. That's only 2014. That open source product. So now it's common. Like all the IDPs do support this identity bridge pattern. Now let's say if you don't have identity bridge pattern. So we have seen this kind of like federation flows in some of DevRev customers have implemented, but it brings a lot of limitations too. So these are two anti-patterns we see in case if you don't support this identity bridge pattern. Like for example, at DevRev, we don't necessarily need to trust Auth0. Like we could, like DevRev app itself can trust Google, LinkedIn, and then whenever we want to onboard a customer with their own enterprise IDP, we can directly build a trust relationship. So then what would happen? So then we'll end up with this spaghetti identity anti-pattern. What happens is we create a lot of point-to-point connections. So
Yeah.
maybe like if you have 5 apps, then each app needs to trust each and every IDP.
Right.
So if there's any, and not just IDP, because we also build in trust relationship. So each app will maintain the trust relationship with the external IDP, which is an anti-pattern. Bringing in new IDP, like when you want to do claim transformations, each app should be aware of it, right? So this is called
That's right.
spaghetti identity. We have seen this pattern, like when some of our customers do that, then it becomes a little harder to integrate with modern IDPs, modern apps. So then the second one is identity silos. So that is, once again, when you are not following the identity bridge pattern, your app, if your app is built to accept only SAML assertions, then you won't be able to talk to another IDP which supports OpenID Connect. So you end up creating federation silos. So these are two anti-patterns we want to avoid, and the identity breach is the pattern that will help you to mitigate these limitations, which is the pattern that we have followed at DevRev, and it has given us a lot of flexibility. Like, we don't need to worry about authentication; it's taken care by the Auth0, and we don't need to worry about multi-factor authentication. That's the one reason, like, why we didn't want to support username and password from day one, because adding username password doesn't necessarily mean just to like authenticate giving a username password to user and validating that. There's a lot of like baggage around that. You need to worry about password reset, then password recovery questions, the multi-factor authentication, and there are a lot of burden around managing username and password, and we are not in that business too at DevRev. So we really didn't want to support username and password based authentication. So from day
Yeah,
one,
and I think, and I'll just add that I think historically, I mean, for those who are watching this, that perhaps were building login accounts to various platforms or websites 15 years ago.
yeah,
Obviously, of late, that's becoming less and less common, right? It's quite uncommon now. I mean, unless you're logging into a platform that, in and of itself, wants to make sure that they are becoming an identity provider. If you are simply a product that wants to maintain a profile but doesn't necessarily want to want to see itself as an identity provider in and of itself, it doesn't actually have to maintain that. It can actually just allow you to sign in through another means and sort of deflect that entire responsibility and really just kind of focus on, once you are logged in, you're signed in, and there's a persona profile that it can be created without necessarily taking responsibility of the actual authentication piece.
that's right. Yeah. So this graph shows, like, this is little old data. Like, this is probably 2024 September. So you can see, like, so most of the time people would like, so whenever you sign up with DevRev, common for other SaaS apps too, they want like very frictionless flow, right? So they'll either use social login, or else email OT passwordless login. But you can see, but when they become a production customer, most of the customers, I would say 90% of the production customers who are using it in prod, I mean, seriously, so they will use enterprise SSO. So now you can see, if you look at like the trend, the enterprise SSO usage is growing up. And I looked at data last week. 46% of the users who are using the DevRev platform, which includes like paying customers and all the free users too, among that 46% use SSO, and 34% use email OTP, and 20% use social login. So that's the distribution of different login flows.
Got
So
it.
maybe, yeah, maybe
Good.
Hamad, let's go for a like quick demo and show it how like different flows work.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So now if you go to devrev.ai, so if you click on login, so you will end up in this page. So now you can pick any of these options. You can, when you click on login in with email, so that is OTP over email. So you go there. So you will need to type your email, and then you will get an OTP to your email. Then you can put it here and log in. And one thing to notice here is, so now, so you can have one or more DevWorks in the DevRev platform. But when you log into app.devrev.ai domain, so you are logging to DevRev. You are not directly logging to your org, right?
That's
So
right.
I'll show you an example here. Let's say I'll pick a login with Google. Now I will use this one, johndoe@facilelogin.com. So this is, so for this johndoe@facilelogin.com, I have set up a Google workspace. So this will redirect to my Google workspace, and I'll authenticated from there. Yeah. So now I didn't log into a specific org. I logged into a org select page, which will list out all my orgs. So once again, DevRev is not just in one region. For the moment, we are in 5 regions, and we are in the process of onboarding more. So users can be part of a given dev org is pinned to a one region, but that doesn't necessarily mean a user should be in a dev org in one region. So I can be part of dev orgs from different regions, And when you are on the multi-org select page, you will see all your orgs from all the regions. And one more thing, for each org, authentication is decoupled from other orgs. So we don't share anything between orgs. So every org will have its own authentication mechanism. But if you want, you can connect them all. Like for example, in this case, so we find these orgs by my email. So since I have logged in using IDP, it verifies my email. Then DevRev knows to find out what are the orgs that I'm a member of. So these are the two orgs. For these two orgs, I have set up two different authentication methods. So if you go to my demo org 2, even though I'm already logged into DevRev, when I click on this one, it will initiate the login of the corresponding dev org. So now when I click on this, it will take me to Google OTP. Yeah, so it went and came back. Maybe I was already logged in there. So let me log out. So I'll end up on this page again. So if I go back to the login home page, right? Now, sorry, I'll go back and log in with Google. So it'll list out page. Ideally, like if I'm logged out, so this should show me the OTP page again. Yeah, so I think I'm still logged in. I need to try the incognito in this case. So, but this particular org has OTP built in. And now if I pick Google again, and let's see, I'll pick my demo org, this one. So this is configured to talk to my Google Workspace IDP. So I'll authenticate with this one again, right? Yeah, so now I'm logged in. So in all these cases, so I had different authentication mechanisms by org, but still each org has one auth method. But we also have flexibility to add multiple authentication mechanisms for a given org. So let's do that too. So I'll log out from my demo org. Right. So I need to set up, give me a second. I need to set up, so we have API. We don't have a UI for this still. It's something we are working on, but there are APIs. So I'm just enabling this connection.
Can we see it on Postman or something, or you want to keep it off the screen?
1 second. I'll share the right. So I will share the curls. Right. So now, yeah. Right. So now, so this is like, if you go, like even if you search for DevRev ID providers, you will find this page. It shows all the steps that you need to engage one or more IDPs to your organization. Now I added Okta, DevRev Okta to my demo org. So now if I go here, so this is a second way. Like, so if I can log in with app.devrev.ai, then I log into DevRev and it lists out all the orgs that I'm part of. If you want to bypass that step, then you can just type the slug. So we call this slug. This is a unique identifier for your org. When you type this one, authentication mechanism associated with your org will be executed. So earlier I only had continue with my demo org. So now I've added Okta too, right? So when I click on this one, it will take me to, so Ahmad, probably you can log into now. It took me to DevRev Okta server and I logged in. Maybe I'll show it clearly on incognito. If I go here, click on Okta, so it takes me to Okta screen, right?
Yeah.
So I won't log in there, right? So now when I'm enabling an federation option to my org, I can say, I mean, it's an IDP level configuration. IDP, then we give control to the customer. So customer can decide which people in that particular org should be able to log into DevRev based on certain groups. So we give that flexibility to the identity provider. Yeah, so that's one federation flow. I mean, that's the most common way people use DevRev to build single sign-on with the IDPs.
Got it. Thank you for going through that. What so when you look through all of these different providers, identity providers, if you want to call them that, when you talk about the Googles of the world, the LinkedIn's, the Oktas, uh, the Auth0s, of these, which is the one that, when people talk about single sign-on, which is the provider that's actually offering that service in the example that you just provided?
I think all the IDPs do support that. So any IDP out there today, any commercial IDP, they would support all these like single sign-on, identity bridging use cases. And there are few complexities too. For example, uh, when you log into DevRev, so we need to know the user's email. So that's a mandatory attribute you need to bring in from your IDP. But based on the IDP that you use, so this can be an OpenID Connect IDP, SAML IDP, or even your custom IDP. How you bring that email claim in the assertion issued to you from your IDP may be different. So we would need to write some rules here, so you can do it via the APIs to map the claims. Like in the SAML token that you get from your IDP, maybe email is as just email and the value. But Auth0 would expect it a different way, so you can do the claim mapping. So that's something we do support at the Auth0, and most of the IDPs there who is supporting identity breach use cases, they do support too. And another flow I want to highlight here, and this is an issue most of our customers face too. So whenever you onboard an IDP, let's say you add Auth0, sorry, DevRev as a trusted app to your Google Workspace to support federation via SAML. So whenever you add an IDP, let's say we use SAML, right? So then as a shortcut, let's even Okta. So when you add that, you will like these IDPs also provide some app dashboard, right? So when you go to app dashboard, you can see all the apps that your organization support and which you can access. So just click on that, then you'll be logged in, right? So Google also has that, Okta has that, most of the IDPs do have that. So by default, one thing these IDPs do that, whenever you add that button or the icon to this app dashboard, and when you click on that, it initiates a flow called SAML IDP init authentication, right? So let me explain the difference between IDP init and the service provider init flows. So in the IDP init flow, sorry, I'll take a step back. The flow I explained before, it's called SP init, SP initiated. That means that flow is initiated from the application or the service provider, right? So like for example, you come to DevRev app. So DevRev app initiate a login, OpenID Connect login flow with Auth0. Then Auth0 initiate a login flow with the external IDP, right?
Yeah.
So in this particular flow, DevRev app is a service provider, Auth0 is the identity provider. But when Auth0 federate the user to the user's home IDP, Auth0 is a service provider and this IDP is the identity provider, right?
Very
So in
nice.
this flow, it is called SP initiated because it's a service provider initiate this flow, right? So that means Auth0 is creating a SAML request and send it to the IDP. Now in the IDP init flow, there's nothing initiated from this side. So you simply go to IDP, click on a link, and it will create a SAML response and post it to Auth0, right? So now in the identity bridge use cases, this is something little hard to support. Why? Because you get the SAML response here. Now looking at this SAML response, this identity bridge should know how to post to the corresponding app, right? And not just that, when this app supports OpenID Connect, it uses certain like security measures like Pixie, which you won't be able to do at this level. So what most of the IDPs do is, so you get a SAML from response from here, rather passing it as it is to the user, it will initiate a new SPNet flow from this app and then send back, and then you log in to the IDP, because since you already have a session, you don't need to re-log in, but it will generate new SAML response and then continue the SPNet flow. Basically, this identity bridge will convert this IDP init flow into a spinit flow to support these identity breach use cases. Somehow, Auth0 is organization model, it doesn't support this model, right? So because of that, so what we recommend for DevRev customers, so whenever you add DevRev as a trusted app to your IDP, you need to use, by default, all of them use IDP in it. So when you, so most of these IDPs, they have an option when they add this app to the dashboard, you can select add this as a bookmark link. So use that
Mhm.
option. So when you use a big bookmark link, and that link should point to your Slack, like app.devrev.ai/mydemog, something like that.
Right.
Then when you click on that, it will initiate the SPNet flow. But working with our customers, we found there's one IDP doesn't support this bookmark link. So all the IDPs do support. There's one IDP, that's Google Workspace. So Google Workspace doesn't support adding an IDP as an bookmark. They only support the IDP init flows. So for that, we have a workaround. Like we did some integration with Fast, did do like basically bypass the intercept that flow and then initiate SP init. So if you are going to do that, so you would mostly need to talk to us and we'll do that customization for you.
Got it. Sounds good. And what about customers that, might think that because they logged in using Google to make their workspace selection, they're not quite clear why, since they've already sort of logged in through a provider that they think is providing them an SSO solution, that they now have to actually, go into a specific org and actually log in maybe through a different mechanism. Can you maybe just rationalize why that type of confusion might exist?
That's right. Yeah. So like when the users are on this page, probably they don't think. I mean, it's totally acceptable. They not think that they need to log into DevRev first. Their expectation is you log in here, you should be automatically logged into your org, right? So that is
Yeah.
totally fine. But to be more flexible from the DevRev side, so we introduced this one, but we understand it's going to add confusion. So what we are trying to do here is, in addition to these 4 buttons, we will also introduce something called SSO here. So you click
Mhm.
the link to SSO, then type your email. Then looking at the email, we'll pick the orgs that you are a member of. And if you are a member of one org and or else multiple orgs, but with the same trusted IDP connection, then we'll initiate that login flow directly. So you don't need to get confused login into app once and then log into your org again. So that's something in progress, but we'll add it soon. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. That was a pretty thorough review of everything from how we're federating identity, authentication, and then of course the concept of single sign-on, who provides it, and how these things stitch together. Obviously, we shared a reference to your facile login blog post. We're going to put that on Discord for others to maybe use that as a reference. And as we always say, please join us on Discord for not just access to reference material, but also to kind of continue this conversation. It's very possible that you may actually need us to take an action on your behalf, or you need to disambiguate something that you're seeing in the app itself, or perhaps you just want to give us some feedback on whatever we discussed here or your personal experience with our product itself. For any and all reasons, please do join us on the Discord server. We'll flash the Discord server information down below. Um, any final thoughts from you, Prabhat? I know you've got your hands in a lot of cookie jars right now, but how
Yeah.
are you thinking about this moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. This only covers one side of it. How you log into app.devrev.ai. So there's another like app support.devrev.ai, which all support federation flows. And on top of that, we have introduced custom JWT based authentication flow. The reason why we had to introduce custom JWT based authentication was not all the customers, I mean, we can't expect that to follow this identity breach pattern. So they are some of them are using this spaghetti identity pattern. So they
Yeah.
directly connect to these IDPs. So because of that, we had to build something outside of the standard federation flows to them, so they can integrate with their login flow. I think I probably have discussed that in that blog too. Yeah. So looking forward for your feedback. Of course, I mean, we need to work more on like improve the user experience, and we'll keep doing that. So let us know what you think. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. So, I mean, we've gone a little over our usual half an hour, but I think it was good to hear from you and kind of put to rest, the different aspects of this problem and how we've handled it. I mean, there's some principles that maybe we didn't have time to go through in detail, but the fact that we're not handling username and password, and the fact that we're gravitating more and more towards having your login uh, secrets be handled by fewer and fewer identity providers so that you can have the most streamlined experience. That's kind of what we're going after. And of course, everybody in between, if they want to maintain a profile, they can. Any last words from you, Prabhat, here? Thank you again for joining us.
Sure. Yeah, I think, yeah. So once again, yeah, so we are looking forward to hear back from you, and any questions if you have on this, or even like even like general questions on SAML, OpenID Connect, or any of these integration flows, please feel to ask them on Discord. Yeah, happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Prabhat. I know previously we've had you on to talk a lot about how identity is synchronized from source systems, and we have a first-class identity management system to understand the personas that are logging into the system, meaning who they are, what their role might be, and being able to not only have that information available to govern access management for the individuals, but also to be able to use the same system to be able to manage access and identity for machines in the form of agents and how those things intersect. And of course, that was a topic that had a lot more to do with how agent architectures reconcile identities across machines and humans. And those humans could be in the back office or they could be out there as customers and prospects as well. But of course, today, I think we're talking about taking a real big step back and saying, look, how do identities, just the ones that are necessary to log into the experience, how are those operating? And what are the fundamentals governing how you authenticate, what the chain of authentication looks like, and what it means to have a true sign-on, single sign-on experience. So I appreciate you going through this topic as well as the previous one. And folks, it's always a pleasure to have you guys join us, either live here or you can join and find these archives wherever you watch your videos. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.